Hello, fellas. Delusional Taiki here. Gonna deal some hopium. I was reading the chat like 5 minutes before, and the chat the chat is wild, right? I'm here for some hardcore, uncut hopium. Give it to me raw. My dog just threw up like 5 minutes ago, so I'm gonna just have him on my lap, just to make sure he's okay. I guess housekeeping items. Sorry, he's licking me. Housekeeping items. I don't know if I can live stream next week. I'm moving to New York. I'll try though. But moving with the dog, also traveling across the country with the dog, definitely difficult. But we'll get through that. Let's see. This guy promotes, so he has victims to dump on. Yeah, so don't listen to me, right? There's actually, I made a video on this, right? Back in, I don't remember, like December or January, where, in the Jewel days, sorry to trigger PTSD, but I like backtracked all my videos, and every time I recorded a video, the price of Jewel dropped 20%. Every single time, like, without question. So I do think people use my videos for exit liquidity, so definitely be careful for that. It's not my intention, obviously. But for example, like even GMX, right? Like obviously GMX, one of the best coins, my favorite coin, definitely underexposed, but hold up. I uploaded a video here and then just like mute, right? It's like I don't even know, like maybe like I make videos and people are reminded that they own that token and then they just like dump it. But it's kind of what happens. So just don't really trust me. Yeah. Anyways, okay, so that's all. Let's see. Yeah, even Xmon, right? Yeah. Xmon is like, it's kind of weird because I was recording the video like when Xmon was like low to mid 30s, and then for some reason it just like got to the 40s. Yeah. And like I was like, you know what, like I'm not gonna try to time these videos. I'm just gonna upload it, and then it just like dumps. But just use me as exit liquidity, I guess. But let's go over this. I'll mostly focus on the Arbitrum ecosystem, and I'll pause in the middle to answer any questions. But I'll talk about the few projects I like. GMX, obviously, I'll give a brief overview of Dopex, Plutus, Sperax. I like GMX and Sperax the most, to be honest. I think they're pretty promising. I mean, obviously the market sucks, so I'm not really buying this for the pump tomorrow or whatever. But fundamentally, I'm a fan of the Arbitrum ecosystem. All the projects are trying to work together. You see the ecosystems like Optimism, right? You just see like phantom projects forking their projects over. It's like whatever. But Arbitrum, they are trying to do something new, right? Like all the projects are trying to build on top of each other. So I do think it has potential, and I do think it will be top 5 ecosystem in TVL by the end of the year. So let's get into it. So quick disclaimer, no, not financial advice. I'm delusional. So quick hopium. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, right? I'm a crypto guy. I'm not going to spend too much time like LARPing as a macro analyst. I've kind of seen this trend of like crypto influencers just becoming macro experts, and I of course it does matter, but I'm going to focus on crypto fundamentals because that's what I'm good at. I'm not good at macro, obviously, but in terms of why I'm more positive in the markets for the next couple of weeks into the end of the year. And when I say I'm positive on the markets, I'm not saying all-time highs. I'm just saying that I do think there has been a trend shift between what we've seen since the beginning of the year was this down-only market. But with the market breadth, with inflation indicators looking like it's peaking, I do think that the market can the market can just stabilize from here. So I'm just saying that we've come from this regime, right, of down only, and we've changed from down only to sideways to slightly up. And in that type of environment, I do think there are coins that I think can outperform, right? Namely things like GMX, things with strong fundamentals. So that's kind of what I'm focused on. And obviously, stocks look really bad. So if that does poorly, then, all bets are off. But just sticking to my guns. I don't mind being wrong, right? Like if you guys memed, like if markets nuke and I get memed to death, then that's fine, right? Just everyone's bearish, sentiment is really bad, but I'll try to take the other side of that. So leading indicators for CPI has been rolling down, and if you think about inflation, if you think about soft data and hard data, hard data like CPI, PPI tends to lag, and if you track the leading indicators such as oil, commodities, etc., natural gas has been kind of going up, but other components of CPI has been rolling down, mainly because the economy is slowing down, etc. But I'm pretty sure inflation has peaked, and inflation doesn't. If you look at the historical charts of inflation, it tends to go up on a straight line and then go down on a straight line. So if you think that peak inflation has happened, then I think it's fair to assume that CPI will come in softer on September 13th. I'm expecting somewhere in the 6 handle or the 7 handle, right? So we had 8.5. If inflation is in the 8 handle in September for August, then I think I will de-risk and I have to reconsider everything. But I do think that CPI is going to come down, because the leading indicators for inflation has started to come down. So, and peaks in inflation tend to correlate with bottoms in the stock market, at least in the short to medium term. So that's kind of how I'm positioned for it. And I'll talk about how I'm allocated later. And this is my case. This is my case, right? I'm delusional, right? Inflation peaked low, haha. So the Goldilocks scenario that I'm hoping for is for the merge to do well in mid-September. It's probably happening the 13th or the 14th, according to the people I follow. And if the merge, and this is pure hopium, right? This is like the best case scenario, which probably won't happen. But I'm here dealing hopium. So merge CPI gonna happen within a few days, and if that goes well, then I think the markets can look forward and just look towards the fundamentals of crypto assets in general. Odyssey hopefully starting after the merge. Odyssey, I'll talk about Odyssey later, but Arbitrum Nitro just shipped a couple hours ago, and I was listening to the Bankless podcast, and the Arbitrum guys said that Odyssey will resume in short order. So maybe within the next couple of weeks, I think that's gonna bring positive tailwinds into the Arbitrum ecosystem. That can probably do well, and NFT activity to pick up. One thing I was looking at is when it comes to crypto, there's no leading indicators for crypto, right? For activity to pick back up. Everyone looks at on-chain data, like metrics, and everything looks bearish, right? But everybody knows that. Unfortunately, crypto is such a new industry. There really aren't strong leading indicators to go off of. But what I've noticed, when I was back testing previous rallies from the bottom, previous bear markets, is that NFTs tend to lead DeFi. NFTs are so liquid, and it's so liquid, and it's a market that's easier to move. So every DeFi rally was preceded by some speculation within the NFT ecosystem. So NFT speculation is something I'm tracking, and NFT speculation has started to pick up. I'm not sure how sustainable that is, but hopefully if that sustains, then it can give a green light for more speculation to happen within other ecosystems. Of course, capital really isn't entering the ecosystem, so it really is a PvP environment right now. I know people hate hearing that, but it is what it is. So it's I'm more focused on fundamentally driven projects, or just positive projects with strong fundamentals, instead of trying to chase momentum and just not trying to overtrade. I feel like most people don't really have an edge short-term trading. I definitely don't. So I'm just trying to position myself for the next couple of months, positioning myself in strong projects, and hopefully just holding conviction. There's a lot of volatility in markets, but just having a strong time enhanced mentality, I guess, and hedging my portfolio in other means, such as shorting Avalanche via GOP, etc. Hopefully we can have an ETH-led rally. We had a leverage wipeout recently with Ether and BTC. I was kind of worried about Ether just pumping into the merge. I feel like that's a little unhealthy. Hopefully, the markets can just go sideways or slightly up from here. And if we can have a spot-driven rally in Ether, I think it's going to be a much more healthy market structure. I know Bitcoin is a piece of shit recently. Bitcoin dominance roughly at 40%. And I think it's fair to assume that that's going to continue, especially with the Mt. Gox FUD, maybe tokens unlocking later in the year. Merge, obviously a bullish catalyst for Ether. But I do think that we do need a Bitcoin dominance-led rally at some point. Maybe that happens next month, or maybe Bitcoin just catches the entire market's offsides and just goes on a crazy dominance run after the merge, when no one is like, after everyone rotated Bitcoin into Ether, right? Maybe that's when the Bitcoin dominance surge happens. But generally, it's really unhealthy for the markets for altcoins to pump while Bitcoin is like super weak. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And then hopefully the Arbitrum token in Q4 can hopefully bring more on-chain demand. Yeah, so that's it. So, I did add more risk to the portfolio. I've been saying that, I do think the markets have bottomed. I think diffs are for buying, and I am a man of my word. I have no idea if I'm going to be correct, but just sticking to my plan. I know that the lower we go, the sentiment gets worse. The narrative becomes scarier and scarier. It becomes worse and whatnot. But, I built a plan. I'm just going to stick to it. And if I die, I die. But, that's kind of how I think about things. And how I went risk on earlier this week isn't really like buying altcoins, but really just closing my Avalanche short. So there was this FUD, right? Like the Avalanche thing, like this unethical, like Avalanche is suing other competitors and whatnot. And this was kind of weird, right? Because CZ also retweeted this thing. But it turns out that this thing was led and funded by the ICP team, right? So, to be honest, like if you're ICP and your token looks like this, I try to FUD other projects too. And I think Avalanche is just severely oversold at this point. So for those that don't know, I borrowed Avalanche on Aave and I bought GLP with it. And that was like my way of hedging my other altcoin purchases in the past couple of weeks and months. And now that Avalanche just nuked a lot, I do think it's oversold. That FUD has been debunked. And I do think Avalanche, even though I'm not a huge fan of volatile ones right now, I do think Avalanche can outperform from here. Maybe not significantly, but like outperform Phantom or something. Yeah, outperform Phantom or something. So that's kind of what I did. So the way I went to risk on, I guess, recently was closing my Avalanche short, so booking those profits, and then adding more GLP. GLP is very, it's one of the best assets out there, right? Closely tied with GMX. Not only do I get to buy an asset that's earning me fees, paying me fees, that give me some exposure to the markets, I'm also farming GMX, and I love GMX. And I'm not really interested in buying more GMX at this point. I've been farming GLP and GMX since the beginning of the year, so that's just going to be my way of just stacking GMX. I don't really have intentions of selling it. It's one of the few projects with fundamental tailwinds and narrative tailwinds, so I'm just going to stick to it. And if I was ever reborn as a bald white man, I would probably be Tony Dwyer. Right, and like full disclosure, like I don't like I said, I don't expect all-time highs in anything, but I feel like as the markets, as the price goes lower, I do think the risk reward becomes more and more favorable, and I will de-risk at some point. But right now I'm in this buy the dip mentality, and if I am correct in the thesis that we have put in a bottom, then technically, right, as the price goes down, the risk reward of buying new things becomes more attractive. Right, that's kind of how we view things. I'm currently like roughly 10% cash, and I probably won't go any lower. And if the market's bounce, I'll probably take more profits. I'll borrow more AVAX, buy GLP with it, and hopefully, just observing what I've been doing with the GLP and whatnot. Hopefully that shows, the power of using money markets, borrowing a volatile asset, buying a less volatile asset, and that can be a way for you to short a particular asset and hedge your portfolio to the downside. I have nothing against Avalanche, but it's just out of necessity, right? Because GLP is only available on Avalanche and on Arbitrum, but I don't really want to short Ether right now. So if markets nuke, then I'll be a sad boy, right? And you can meme me to that, but that's kind of how I view it. And I'll quickly talk about Nitro and Odyssey, and then I'll look at the questions. Maybe I'm getting roasted. So Arbitrum Nitro shipped today, a couple hours ago. It's supposed to improve the user experience, both for, just traders like you and I, market participants like you and I, as well as for developers. And I guess a word of caution, I don't think Nitro will change anything. I think the average fees paid on Arbitrum is going to decrease by roughly 60 to 80%, which of course is a significant improvement. And I think the capacity for Arbitrum increased by roughly 7x. So, it's more scalable. The transactions are cheaper and faster. But at the end of the day, right, like whether you pay 80 cents or 20 cents in fees on Arbitrum, doesn't really matter, right? Like it's not going to make prices go up, at least in this environment. Of course, if we are in this raging bull market, right, if Nitro shipped like a year ago, then yeah, like that significant improvement will improve the fundamentals because it's going to allow for more people to use certain applications. But in the short term, right, Nitro alone isn't going to change anything, at least in my opinion. I think the important catalyst is Odyssey, Arbitrum Odyssey, because what Odyssey is going to do is it's going to force people to bridge into Arbitrum and actually use Arbitrum applications to collect these NFTs that are hopefully tied to the airdrop. I've mentioned this before, but I think generally people have gotten complacent on the bearish side. And what I mean by that is that just because prices are down and macro is bad, I think people aren't really focused on fundamentals, and they're in this mentality of, yeah, macro bad, crypto bad, I'm not going to worry about fundamentals, I'll just buy, I don't know, like 12 months from now at lower prices, or 6 months from now at lower prices. And maybe these people end up being correct, right? Maybe they are correct. But if GMX has taught me anything, you know, fundamentals still do matter, right? And you can put valuations on certain projects, and you can buy things that are cheap. And, you know, if it's paying you in fees, then there's really no reason to sell. So, you know, if Odyssey resumes, which, you know, the Arbitrum team said it will, it's going to force people to bridge, use certain applications, and then people will be forced to learn about certain Arbitrum ecosystem projects. And I think that can bring potential buyers. Not quite sure about that, but, you know, if you think about the risk reward of participating in certain ecosystems, other than Arbitrum and Ethereum Layer 1, I don't really see any better opportunities out there, right? Like Alt L1's really not hot. Optimism, not a huge fan. So Arbitrum and ETH mainnet, probably the best places to look. And then, you know, some pet projects on other Alt L1s. I'm a little worried that Nitro is going to be sold in use. I think like Arbitrum tokens went up a lot recently, like leading up to Nitro. I'm not sure if that's rational because Arbitrum Nitro has been public knowledge for weeks and months. So like, why are people buying it now? Right? Like, do people really think that Nitro is going to make things pump? I'm a little bit nervous about that. And if there's no mention of Odyssey in the next couple of weeks, I do think that that's going to be a headwind for Arbitrum ecosystem projects. But at the end of the day, I think overthinking it is like, you know, too mid-curve, I think. Arbitrum projects, it's just higher beta with Ether, right? Like if Ether goes up 5%, like Dopex goes up like 20%. If Ether goes down 5%, Dopex goes down 20%. At the end of the day, if you're trying to outperform Ether, I do think it's best to look at Arbitrum projects because it's acting as ETH beta. And yeah, I've said this before, but you know, L2s and mainnet is where most of the action is. I expect Arbitrum to be top 5 by the end of the year in TVL. And it doesn't mean that, you know, more capital is going to enter the ecosystem, but I'm just assuming that TVL will leave from Tron, BSC, Avalanche, Polygon, Solana into Arbitrum with everything that's going on. Looking at the bridge inflows, it does look pretty favorable. Obviously, the green bars look like, you know, big and whatnot, But if you think about the US dollar value of these bridging inflows, it's not that much. So, you know, we're not expecting any bull market type gains here, but you know, Arbitrum definitely interesting, and I'll talk about the projects that interest me later. Yeah, so I would just assume that everything is PvP. Like if you're trying to buy Arbitrum tokens right now, then like you're probably late to the game, to be honest. But at the end of the day, it's like ETH beta, right? If Ether pumps 20%, then yeah, everything will fly. But that's not necessarily because the fundamentals of certain projects are that great. It's just that more eyeballs are on the Arbitrum ecosystem. So if people want to go risk on, then they are going to buy Arbitrum ecosystem projects. I think it's really important to think about like why people buy certain tokens, right? And you know, for example, like GMX and Dopex, right? Those tokens tend to do well when Ether is going up, just because when people think about Arbitrum tokens, they just think of GMX and Dopex, and that's like the first thing they buy. And you know, this is like consumer psychology stuff. I mean, I started marketing in college, so you know, it's kind of how you have to think about it. But you know, why people buy, really interesting. And GMX obviously top performer. This is a GMX ETH ratio, and you know, it's hitting all-time highs. And you know, people look at the market cap like roughly 400 million and say, you know, it's kind of too expensive. But FTX recently raised at a $32 billion valuation. So, you know, it's roughly trading at like 1 to 2% of FTX's valuation, which I think, I think it still has upside. If the product, I mean, the current iteration of the product, you know, isn't that great, right? You can only trade Bitcoin, Ether, Avalanche, and certain altcoins. So the next leg for, I guess, the next leg in GMX has to be led by the narrative around synthetics. I'm not sure when that's going to launch, but you know, if the team doesn't ship synthetics, then you know, I do think that GMX has a capped ceiling. But in the meantime, GMX, not only does it have the fundamental tailwinds behind the fees and just having a good product in general, it also has the tailwinds of just an Arbitrum narrative. Great tokenomics, great community, great product. Don't see a reason to sell this when it pays me so well. I will continue to farm GMX. I will continue to farm with GLP. And I don't really see a scenario where I don't own GLP in the next 6 to 12 months, to be honest. Just because it's a way for me to stack my gains that way. So let me just pause, look at the questions. Let's see. Wrecked. Yep. People showing me Pulse Chain. Yep. Okay. Cool. Kanto and Doge. It's uber liquid, so I don't care to participate in those games. This hex guy is like Mountain Gox, September 15th. Richard Hart told you, wrecked. I think I have this tab open, right? I don't know when Mountain Gox tokens are going to be distributed, but it's not going to be anytime soon. But we'll see. This is definitely not bullish, right? I don't think it's that big of a deal because I'm not going to receive Mount Gox coins, but let's say you're going to receive like 2 BTC from Mount Gox, right? And you want to go risk off, then you can hedge that position, right? By shorting BTC before you receive the coins, and covering it when you do receive the coins. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. It's definitely not bullish, right? It's definitely more bearish than it is bullish, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm not sure why people like Polygon, to be honest. Let's see. I don't know when Odyssey starts, but I listened to the Bankless podcast with the Arbitrum guys, and they said once Nitro ships and the tech is more stable, they will resume Odyssey in short order, whatever that means. Not going to do price targets because I have no idea. Let's see. Yeah, Optimism stuff fell flat once OP incentives were released. Yeah, but the Optimism ecosystem, you can't compare Optimism ecosystem to the Arbitrum ecosystem, right? It's much more mature. Optimism ecosystem is not that great, right? What's even a good application on Optimism? I don't even know. Not a fan of synthetics. If you want to understand GMX GLP, I have done many videos. I posted a video in mid-June about it, so watch that. I'm not with my content. I'm gonna focus less on top of funnel stuff. I'm gonna assume that people watching these videos care more about crypto than the average person, and actually care about the fundamentals and learning and whatnot. And I'll let the other YouTubers collect top of funnel viewers. I'm gonna focus more on mid to bottom of funnel, because I feel like that kind of content is missing. So market sucks, but I'll continue to make content, provide hopium. Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Let's talk about, wait, is this the right? I know it's not. Okay, so let's talk about Dopex. I'll talk about Dopex, Plutus, and Sperax. I think those are the most promising, not in that order. I think GMX and Sperax is the most promising, maybe followed by Plutus and Dopex. But I'm just gonna do it in alphabetical order. So let's talk about Dopex. It's a decentralized options exchange. I'm not an options expert, so I'm not going to pretend this is bullish, this is bearish. I just want to give a brief overview just so you're aware of the risks and generally the potential, right? Both, all 3 projects have a lot of potential. It's just that in the short term, there are things lacking, right? Aside from GMX, I think all the Arbitrum ecosystem tokens just trade on momentum and narrative and ETH beta. So GMX I think can decouple from the rest of the markets just generally, just because it has such strong fundamental drivers. But everything else is a little bit more risky. So I just want people to know that. Definitely not shilling it. Very, very risky. And the fundamentals are very speculative. But Dopex I think is just a rotate toward play, to be honest. And I'm not really sure what edge you have in buying it right now. I have no idea. But it definitely has potential. Definitely has potential. And the reason for that is if you think about option protocols in crypto right now, you have things like Dopex, Ribbon, Datanuts, etc. The thing with Ribbon and Datanuts is that those two projects create structured products where they take options from Deribit and create structured products on chain where you can deposit money into it and hopefully pay a yield, right? And earn yield that way, and you pay a fee. The problem with that is that it's not really DeFi, right? Of course you create option like structured products on chain, but it's not really DeFi, right? You're relying on other counterparties to create strategies for you. And also with Datanuts, with Ribbon, if you backtrack and you backtest the performance of these vaults, they lose money, right? Like these aren't really great strategies. So I feel like options is one thing that's lacking within the crypto ecosystem, and GMX has proved that you can create an on-chain perps trading protocol. Some people don't like it. I know a lot of traders that don't like using GMX, but it doesn't really matter what they think. You just look at the metrics, people use it, right? And if Dopex can create a more mature DeFi primitive, right, create an on-chain options protocol, then there's definitely going to be demand for that. And there has been demand for it. With these options and straddles that they've been launching, they sell out immediately. They've been selling out. The problem is like this chicken and egg problem where there's demand, but there's not enough people writing these options. So unless Dopex can onboard a market maker or incentivize more people to write options, I feel like TVL will continue to be very, very low. Dopex is trading at roughly a $90 million market cap with $30 million in TVL, which is kind of iffy. Of course, if you are investing in if like the future growth, then yeah, like maybe 90 billion is cheap. But looking at the current valuation to the current fundamentals, it's pretty questionable, right? And if you want to just like hold it, you have to have a multi-month time horizon. I feel like the majority of the people buying Dopex is like this fast money people, where they're just like trying to flip it, trying to front run people, which is kind of what is it? What's the word? I don't know. It's like kind of yeah. It's I forget the word, but it definitely feels more PvP. But I just want to share this because I do think it has a potential where if you can create a decentralized option exchange on chain, you can have other applications built on top of it. Similarly to how GMX, right? You create GLP, and other projects are building on top of GLP, which will only increase the TVL of GLP, which will make GMX a more liquid trading platform. And it kind of has a reflexive way of forming more fundamentals that way. I can explain European and Atlantic's options later if you want me to, right? Just spam the chat or something. I'll skip it right now because it takes too long and I don't want to bore people. It's in the appendix section, but let me keep going. Yeah, so like I said, TVL is very low. So, the hype to fundamental ratio definitely skews to the hype side, but it definitely has potential. Atlantic's, if you go to the Dopex Discord, they think it's going to be like this XY equals K moment. I'm not sure about that. And Atlantic's is an interesting concept. It's not that capital efficient, so that's kind of the one thing that I'm worried about. But feel free to pause the video and read these if you want. But just things like that. It's gonna allow for more primitives to be built on top of it. And one of the reasons I got into DeFi is this concept of money Legos, DeFi Legos, where you create applications and other applications will be building on top of you. And that's kind of how financial markets work, right? You can't just build everything yourself. You kind of build infrastructure and you have people build on top of it. So definitely has potential as a base layer, base application layer. But just have to have a longer time horizon there. Yeah, I already mentioned this, right? But there's a lot of demand for on-chain options. It's just that it's really, really difficult to get people to take the other side of the trade, right? To get people to write these options. That's the main problem. If Dopex can get people to write more options, then I feel like this project is going to thrive. Quickly, rDPX, rebate Dopex, or Dopex rebate token. Feel free to pause the video here. But one of the ways that they've been trying to incentivize people to write options is having this rDPX token, where if you write options and you lose money, you can get a rebate, right? Roughly 25 to 30% of your losses. So like if you lose $100 or something, you might get like $20 worth of rDPX tokens. Obviously, uber inflationary token, influence supply and whatnot. So what's the value, or what's the demand driver there, right? And they're trying to roll this thing out called Dopex USD, which I think is kind of cool. To be honest, like, you know, they have this thing, like what the hell is this, right? Like, you know, how do you expect people to look at this and say, oh wow, like bullish, right? I feel like, you know, with DeFi, some teams just trying to like overcomplicate things, and, you know, make it so difficult to understand that, you know, people just say, oh yeah, like super bullish, right? Without fully understanding it. So that's one of the issues I have with this. Or maybe, you know, this is like the most simple way to explain this thing, which might be an issue as well. But you kind of see this trend of more projects building out their own stablecoin to create more utility within their own ecosystem. And that's definitely the trend I think this space is going towards. You know, Frax has their own stablecoin within its own ecosystem. Definitely Dopex trying to do this thing. And I'll also talk about Sperax, and, you know, AVAX, Curve, etc. Right? Feel free to pause this too. I'm not going to read everything, but, you know, Dopex is interesting. I do like the team, super strong community. I know for a fact that, you know, Dopex people watched my videos, so, you know, maybe they get angry, right? And they're going to spam me on Twitter or something, right? Like, Taiki, you don't know jack shit, right? Like, stop funding my bags. The thing is, I own Dopex, so, like, I'm funding my own bags. But, you know, I just, like, don't want people to get wrecked. You know, there's also going to be a tokenomics revamp where you can create rDPX using LP tokens, such as Dopex USD, Dopex / Dopex Ether LP tokens to, you know, create VE-DPX. So it's similar to Balancer. So, you know, the team definitely knows what they're doing. And if you track TZ Talk Chad, the founder, you know, definitely a smart fella. He's building every day nonstop. So, you know, you have to have a longer time horizon on this one. But, you know, definitely promising, right? Definitely promising. The thing with the timeline is that, you know, these things take so long to ship. So, you know, if you're buying like this token because of Dopex USD, you're gonna get disappointed, right? You're gonna be disappointed because it's probably gonna come out like Q4 or Q1, right? So just be careful with this one, but it's definitely something that people should track because it definitely has potential to be a DeFi primitive. And maybe Arbitrum ends up becoming this L2, right, ETH layer 2, where people can trade perps, right, on leverage and also trade options, you know, liquid options and liquid perps. And maybe that's the minor use case that Arbitrum fulfills. And, you know, there's definitely potential there. Yeah, so tailwinds from short-term narratives and potentially long-term fundamental drivers. But, you know, in the short term, I treat it as Arbitrum beta. And if the fundamentals improve, if the TVL goes up, then I'll more than happy to, you know, just ride it out for the longer term. But I'm just treating it as, you know, a short to medium term thing. And I feel like everyone should as well, right? Just be careful. TVL is very low. And as long as that continues to be the case, then it's a very PvP token. So let's talk about Plutus. Plutus is trying to be this convex for Arbitrum. So it's trying to accumulate VE Dopex, VE Jones, VE SPA, and also escrowed GMX, right? And, you know, it's trying to accumulate these VE tokens. Not really sure what their end goal is, right? I listened to the interview by the founder. He seemed like super nonchalant about it. He's like, yeah, you know, I love convex, so I wanted to make it on Arbitrum, right? And just accumulate these governance tokens. And maybe, you know, there's actual potential there. But I don't really know what their end goal is, right? They're just accumulating these governance tokens and hoping that maybe it like works out or something. Yeah, so I'm in this farm, Plutus Dopex, and Dopex farm. It pays out pretty well. The inflation's super high. The one thing is like all liquidity on Sushi. Yeah, I do think it's upside, but no, there's a bunch of short-term risks. One risk here is that, so I think August is month 4, right, for this vesting schedule. And, you know, this is like super high inflation, right? So you have team tokens vesting. You also have private TGE tokens vesting for the next 3 months. So August, September, October. So, you know, this is kind of dangerous. And also the team tokens, right? And these investors got in at 19 cents. Not really sure what the price is right now, but, you know, if there's any hint of the markets going down, then people will just, you know, sell it, right? The TG investors will like nuke their positions. And if you go to Dex Screener and you filter these like buys and sells for, you know, anything above like, let's say $25,000, they're mostly sells. I took the screenshot a couple weeks ago, so maybe I can do it later, maybe update it. But it's generally been the same, right? So lots of sell pressure, even though it has some potential. There's a podcast. But we've seen Redacted Cartel launching on Arbitrum, right? Partnering with Plutus with Hidden Hand, right? Hidden Hand is a bribes marketplace utilized by things like Frax, Aura, etc. So there's definitely infrastructure being built around Plutus, and I'm not really sure what the market cap is, like 6 million or something. But you're probably gonna get dumped on, right? Probably gonna get dumped on. So it's probably something you farm, probably not something you ape. Liquidity is like 2 million, right? Really, really low liquidity. So just be careful, but definitely something I'm watching. Okay, so let's talk about Sperax and Demeter. This is something I'm the most excited for, to be honest, aside from GMX. The thing is, like, the valuation is not attractive, to be honest. Market cap is like 18-20 million, though the Sperax USD is like roughly 4 million. So, it's not that great. So think of it as like a Frax clone, right? Just Sperax is a Frax clone, right? But how does it differentiate from how does it differentiate from Frax? Let me get into that. So they have this thing called Demeter protocol, which they're going to start to roll out, and I think it's pretty interesting. And what they're essentially saying is that, hey, we have our token USDS backed 1-to-1 by like USDC, DAI, Frax, etc. Right? So it's not going to lose peg, and we want to grow the market cap of our stablecoin because that's how we are successful. So if you pair your governance token with USDS, we will create a UniV3 liquidity manager position for you, and we'll also subsidize those farming yields. Sorry, that explanation was kind of whack. So let's say you're Dopex, right? Whatever. It doesn't really matter. And you currently have liquidity on SushiSwap, right? The thing is, SushiSwap is so capital inefficient. Like whenever I have to trade on SushiSwap, like I kind of cry inside because I'm like, oh my god, like I hate SushiSwap. It's so illiquid. Like why can't you trade? Why is there liquidity on UniV3, right? It's more capital efficient. But the thing is, if you're a dev, if you're a team, you don't really care. Like you don't want to have to deal with managing a UniV3 position, right? Because it's it has to be more active, and that's why all these projects just happen to launch liquidity mining on Sushi. But I think that if you can create a UniV3 manager, there could potentially be more demand for it. And Sperax is saying, hey, if you're Dopex and you want to pair your Dopex with USDS and have liquidity on UniV3, we're very experienced, so we'll manage it for you, and we'll help subsidize liquidity mining incentives for that UniV3 position. So if you're Dopex, you can offer less token incentives in the DPX token because Sperax SPA will also offer farming incentives. So Sperax is kind of inflationary right now, but they're trying to bootstrap growth. The team is very strong. They're all doxed. They're backed by Alameda. They're pretty well capitalized. So I don't think they're going to rug. And I think their stablecoin farm is pretty interesting. So Demeter is their way of growing the market cap of USDS, which is going to grow the TVL of USDS. And it's really similar to Frax, where the collateral backing USDS is going to be used to farm on Arbitrum and earn rewards, and just yield farm and distribute those yield farming incentives to Sperax stakers. I think it's definitely interesting. Feel free to pause how like the SPA burn dynamic works, right? But essentially, whatever fees they earn with Demeter and the yield farming initiatives will be used to buy back the SPA token, which will be distributed to SPA stakers. Definitely the inflation exceeds like whatever revenue this thing produces, but we're trying to farm this thing and looking at the longer term fundamental drivers for these particular protocols. They're also looking to have USDS liquidity on curve with Frax BP. And so, this is from June 15th, and I don't really know when this thing is going to launch, but Sam from Frax mentioned that Frax BP is going to be live on Arbitrum at some point, hopefully by the end of the year. So when that happens, USDS will also pair their stablecoin with Frax BP, which I like to see. I love FXS, and I think SPA is also interesting, right? Alex Shaw is their BD guy. He's pretty good. He's pretty good. Talked to him a few times. So right now it's a $4 million market cap. I think it's gonna grow significantly, probably low to mid 8 figures by end of year, assuming Demeter isn't a total garbage project, right? But I think the project definitely makes sense. The concept definitely makes sense. But the thing is, like, even if this is USDS market cap that's like 20, 30 million, 18 million market cap for SBA, maybe not that favorable, right? So I don't really recommend anyone buy this thing, but I think the stablecoin farm is pretty interesting on Uniswap. So if you go to the Sperax website, you can get roughly like 9 to 10% just being an LP for USDS, USDC. Pretty good. You can lock up your LP tokens and earn double the rewards, but that's pretty dangerous. Like, I hate locking up tokens personally. So I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? And like I said, Plutus will also accumulate VE SPA, and with Hidden Hand launching Arbitrum with Redacted Cartel, maybe there can be some bribing shenanigans with Plutus, but who knows, right? It remains to be seen. And USDS, right? With the Demeter protocol, Sperax, they're going to expand to other chains. So not only is it like an Arbitrum play, maybe Sperax can be a way to bootstrap growth of their stablecoin, USDS, via UniV3 liquidity position managers on other chains, such as Optimism, Polygon, Ether, right? It's definitely a type of project that's not on Optimism yet, so I think there's definitely product market fit there. And also, we've seen this trend of, projects, for example, like, Optimism, right? A bunch of projects on Phantom got no usage, so they forked their project on Optimism and, and try to get some users. I definitely see this trend continuing. I do think more projects are going to launch on L2s and leave like Phantom or other L1s. So if that's going to be the case, then maybe there's going to be more demand in the future for a UniV3 manager product like the Demeter protocol for Sperax. Definitely interesting. So that being said, let's look at the Q&A. We'll see if anyone has any questions there. Let's see. Not a fan of Metis. Every single live stream I get questions about alt L1s, but they're all the same, right? I mean, alt L1s aren't going to come back until either gas fees are just higher, right? It's just how it is. Let's see. Do you need low fees and fast transactions for options and perps? Doesn't seem the best use of an L2, but could be wrong. I mean, I definitely think so. I mean, no one's going to trade on leverage on ETH mainnet, right? That definitely doesn't make any sense. So, I feel like the majority of the volume for perps and options are probably going to come on L2s or, their own app chains like DYDX. But, DYDX and GMX definitely like the top two like leverage trading platforms out there. They're going to compete with one another. Both have their pros and cons. There's like no good options protocol right now. But yeah. Any gaming projects that you're looking at? I feel like there's like been this hold on, let's see, hold up. Let me pull this up. There's this one there. One moment. Yeah, so Harvey Milk, I think is a good follow. He made this interesting point, which I do agree with, where there's been a few gaming projects and NFT projects that launched recently. And if you think about it, like these are projects that were able to raise money during the bull market and they were building, and then obviously price went down, but they've been building, so now they're launching in the bear market. And I think these types of projects have potential. They're most like NFT projects. There's like this thing, right? Like DG Daigaku. right? Like this project, it was a free mint. The floor is like 11.5 ether right now. Like I don't even know what this thing is, but you know, it's led by, right? The founder is this guy, right? And like you literally have this guy, like a 33-year-old boomer or whatever, creating like this anime girl NFT project, which makes no sense. But he raised $200 million for this, 200 million, right? Like so, and you know he's also like a very experienced game developer. He was a CEO of Machine Zone. I mean, I'm not really familiar with this thing, but I think it grossed like a few $1 billion in revenue and whatnot. So he's like a specialist in free-to-play gaming, and I mean, you know, he has a good track record, right? And look at that. Like, do you wanna fade those eyebrows, right? Probably not. There's also this thing. It's like these rafts, 10 ether floor, only 100 items, so it's not really liquid. But I think they raised also like money, and they're trying to create a game. So, I mean, I don't really have an edge in this one. Like, there's so much insider trading in the NFT ecosystem, so I feel like buying NFTs is a pretty hard sell. But also, 0x Maki here. There was also and like Moonbirds just announced that they raised 50 million by Andreessen Horowitz. So I think there's definitely interesting things happening in the NFT ecosystem. And one sec. One thing I'm looking at is this. This is like the what is this? This is the median gas fees for Ether. And I was looking at this. I'm like, okay, like in order for us to see a bottom in crypto markets, there has to be more activity on chain, right? Because alt L1s can't do well if there's like no activity on Ether, and if no one's using ETH mainnet, then people are just like buying things on centralized exchanges, and that's not really, that's not really going to sustain any moves. And if you think about here, this was like roughly DeFi summer, right? Or I guess coming out of the bottom, right? We had DeFi summer, which was like the first time, and you know it really caught my attention. And it's like mainly the reason I got into DeFi, where Ether gas fees kind of bottomed and then went on a run. And this is, I guess, after the DeFi bear market, DeFi winter in 2020. You know, everyone was going crazy on food coins. It dumped a lot, at least the gas fees, right? No one was using on chain. And then at some point, Binance Smart Chain was a thing, and then Polygon was a thing, and then it picked right back, and no, it caused dog chain, like Dogcoin mania, Polygon mania, etc. And then in summer of 2021, we kind of saw this where people got liquidated, no one was using on chain, and then NFTs came back, Olympus came back and catalyzed the second leg of the bull market, and now we're here. And this isn't really promising, but you know, like I said, I think NFTs lead DeFi, just because it's more liquid, it's easier for regular people to understand. The barrier to entry is much lower, and you know, it's less complex, right? So I feel like gaming and DeFi, it's like gaming NFTs probably has to ramp up before DeFi can. So definitely something I'm watching, but we'll see though. And this doesn't mean that I think it's bottom, right? Like to be honest, like I think it's more likely you just like go sideways from here, and maybe at some point we go up or something, but that remains to be seen. Let's see. I mean, if you're risk averse and you want to add a risk, I'd probably like buy GLP or try crypto or something. Those are the nuts. Why did DYDX move away from Starknet? I forget the exact reasons why. You know, I mean, also like, I do think that, you know, there's going to be a trend of like major applications building their own app chains. Maybe building on Cosmos. We saw DYDX do it. Maybe Uniswap will have their own chain at some point, but we'll see. Oh God. Do you see my dog? Oh, there he is. He's back. Let's see. Yeah, the Gabriel guy invented the free-to-play meta, and now he's joining Web3, raised 200 million. So I mean, surely that project will probably do well, but I don't own any, obviously. Let's see. I do not own any of those. Not a huge fan of Jones. I mean, Jones tries, like Jones now tries to create products for Dopex, but like no one uses Dopex, right? So, I mean, not no one, but you know, TVL is very low. It's like, yeah. There's like 5 people showing me the graph. Like, are these bots? I don't know. Do you have any views on IOTA? Like, what the hell? Okay. Why am I moving to New York? I've just been in the Bay Area my entire life, basically. I moved here from Japan when I was 8, and you know, I went to middle school, high school in California, went to college in Berkeley. You know, just I feel like I've been too comfortable in the Bay Area, and you know, before I settle down, before I enter my 30s, might as well try to move to the East Coast, try to gain some new experiences, try to get myself out of the comfort zone. I think it'll be like a good personal growth moment for me. The one thing I fear is like flying with my dog, because I have to fly with him in the cabin, which is kind of be weird, but it'll be fun though. I'll probably try to go to more conferences in New York, right? Because all those NFT conferences are like in LA or New York, and because I'm close, I'm gonna be closer to Europe. I think I'll be able to go to like these European conferences as well. Okay, so I think that's about it. Most of these questions, let's see. Yeah, I live near the BART train. When I moved here, I didn't think I'm gonna be making YouTube videos, so I just chose some cheap place near a BART station. But you know, when I move to New York, I'll definitely move somewhere with like less external noise. Yeah, if Dopex TVL is so low, does it mean that pricing is not good enough for option sellers? What's the mechanism there for pricing to adjust? I think one problem is that like you can't really expect retail traders to write options, right? Because I mean I'm not an expert, right? But like we have those like Greek, like the gamma, theta, all that. Like you can't really expect people to like learn those things by themselves and take the risk being the option seller. So I don't think Dopex will gain like you know more usage until market makers on board and whatnot. But no, if they do, then I think that's gonna be like a really positive moment for them. We'll see though. Will Osmosis make a comeback? I think so. I think Osmosis is, where is it? I think I have it here. I mean, obviously this thing is, yeah, it's kind of sad, right? But, oops. I think Osmosis is like one of the few applications that I'm like pretty bullish on longer term, but you know, in the short term, I don't really care for it. Team is strong, right? Sunny, I really like Sunny. Mars protocol went on Osmosis to create leverage protocols for it. I think it's trying to be like this liquidity hub for the Cosmos Hub ecosystem. So yeah, I'm pretty positive Osmosis, but you know, I don't really care to add risk here, to be honest. Okay, sounds good. I think I'm out of the good questions. So like I said, I'll try to do a live stream next week, but if not, I'll try to do like a pre-recorded video, do like a little market update. But besides that, you know, thank you guys for watching. Have fun out there. Let me know what your thoughts are on